Okay, everybody, we're back one more time for a look at an alternative way to export our model and data information or animation information out for compiling into an Unreal Tournament package. This time what we're going to be doing is taking a look at the ActorX plugin. Now, why am I showing you this, and why did I show you a longer way earlier? Well, earlier I felt it was much more important to give you a look at all sorts of different things. Think about it. We got to spend a lot of time going through MaxScript, and we took a look at a very interesting workflow. We also got to use 3ds to UNR, which has been used heavily for many years now. So you're very much up to speed on that. Now we're kind of coming into the very modern age, if you will, with using the ActorX plugin to handle taking care of all of our animation and data for us. And Logan, if you could, go ahead and take just a second and tell them a little bit about ActorX.
Okay, well, Epic came up with this really cool skeletal animation system, and actually the later builds of Unreal Tournament were able to use that. Now, in order to export your animations and models using this new system, there was new data type, so they had to write a new plugin. That plugin is ActorX. It's what you'll use to go in there, set up your animations, and export them, getting ready for a package build.
Now, with doing this, we're going to be, or basically ActorX is going to be looking for hierarchical information, whether from a physique situation or some sort of skinning situation or some sort of parenting situation, right?
Right.
So generally you work with some sort of skeleton, and then you've got your skin mesh, if you will. So in this case right here, we're going to work with hierarchical information where all of our geometry is going to be parented together we'll select this back here, this base part of the gun as the main parent. So the first thing I want to do to go and get started is actually, before we do anything with the gun, two things. One, come over here to my Utilities tab, and there it is, the ActorX by Epic Games rollout. And to find that, just come up here to the Utilities rollout, click on More, there's ActorX. And to download it,
it should be available on epicnights.com.
Okay, cool. So with that, now let's go ahead and take a look at getting rid of our animation that we have. You notice our gun does still have animation on it, the animation that we had earlier. But we want to get rid of that, so I'm going to come in here first and select everything, and then I'll simply just marquee select all of my keyframes down there, Control select my keyframe right there, hit delete, and you'll notice there is no longer any animation. The next thing I need to do is go ahead and create a hierarchy. So what I want to do is come in here and select, select, and select. There we go. With all of these objects here selected, I'm just going to come back here and grab the Select and Link tool and click and drag back over here to the base of the gun, okay, the main part of it, which just made that become the parent of this whole hierarchy. So if I come back here and select, grab my Rotate tool and rotate, you'll notice that everybody else is rotating around his pivot point. Even though their pivot points are there as well, it doesn't matter now because these guys are all children of the main part of the gun back here. So now let's go ahead and come in here and set our animation time. I'm not going to do all of the animation cycles. I'll do the spin up, a basic all fire, the spin down, and the regular fire, and that'll be good enough. So let's just come over here to this area. I'm going to right click for my time configuration dialog. Inside here I'm going to change my length to 60 frames, tell it OK, hit the auto key button, we're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt W so I can come over into my front view so that I can see what's going on, and let's just drag my time slider over here to frame 10, hit W for my move tool, and we'll grab the first two deflector shields, move them out to about there. We'll grab the other two deflector shields. We'll move them to about right there. Now we'll just simply come over here in a perspective view, grab that one, I'll grab that one, and let's go ahead, before we move them, be very careful. Make sure to move your time slider first, so we'll move ahead to frame 20, and then we'll go ahead and simply move these guys back a little bit, maybe to about right there. Then I'll come back over here and grab the front deflector shields, move them forward. So we got something that looks about like that. So far, let's see how the animation's looking. Pretty good. Now, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and turn auto key off and just grab the one here at 20, hold shift down to duplicate it over to 30, grab the one over here at 10, and simply shift drag it over to 40, grab the one at 0, shift drag it all the way over to 49 and 50. If you remember, this was 49 was used for reset earlier. So this is what we've got. Holds, this will be during our actual alt fire segment, and then spinning down. And you got to be very careful that you don't accidentally leave unselected. So let's grab these guys back here. Big mistake to accidentally make. So we'll copy their keys over, copy these keys over, and we'll copy these keys over to 49 and to 50. So now our animation opens, apart, alt fire time, back together, and close. So everything's looking good there. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and take care of the rotation for our barrel. So I'll go ahead and hit Auto key, move us back over here to frame 20. And if you remember, by frame 20, we want this thing to rotate at negative 72 degrees for its first rotation. So just come in here and rotate at negative 72 degrees. Come over here to frame 30. Let's do it another negative 72 degrees. And right there. And all the way over here to frame 49. Go one more negative 72 degrees. And then let's just take the frame back here and copy this guy all the way over to frame 50. Let's turn Auto key off. Okay, so there we are with that. Now we can go ahead and come in here real quick and program our fire animation. So I'm just going to select everything at frame 50. Right click on my time slider, uncheck scale. I'm going to record a position and a rotation key for everybody. That just overwrote some of the data on 50 for the pieces that were animated up front. No big deal. Next thing I want to do is simply hold shift, drag that same keyframe over to frame 60, turn Auto key on, go to frame 51, and from inside here with Auto key turned on, I'm simply going to move the gun down and back, rotate, and that looks pretty good. And we can go ahead and select, let's just do the front. We'll do it just like we did before. Go here with our move tool, switch over into a local mode, and just push it back like such. Now let's just go ahead and turn that back over to view so we don't forget. Turn Auto key off, and let's take a look at it. So boom and release. So now we've got some new animation set up, and this time it's all a hierarchical type animation.
Right. So it's actually fairly cool because now you wouldn't have to worry about moving those pivot points now.
Absolutely. So next thing we can do real quick is I'm just going to tab on over here and show you the new folder structure I've set up. Up underneath Unreal Tournament, I am looking at 3D Buzz 2, where we had done 3D Buzz earlier. Go up under 3D Buzz 2 and you'll see that I have created 3 different folders. I've got a classes folder that's empty, I've got a textures folder that's empty, and I've got a models folder that is empty. Okay? And I created these myself this time, where before when we used 3ds to UNR -setproj, it created them for us. Okay? So now let's go ahead and take a look at ActorX. So the first thing that I want to do, come over here and I want to go ahead and select my output folder. So I'll just simply come into Browse, and there I am at 3D Buzz 2. So good enough. So I'll go ahead and tell it to use that path. Now for my mesh file name, what do you say, Logan? Going to use Viper?
Sure.
Okay, so we've got Viper in there now. Next thing we need to do, since we don't have any bones in here and we're not using physique or anything, I'm going to come down and expand my ActorX setup area, and I'm going to uncheck all physique meshes, and I'm going to check all texture geometry. Okay, all texture geometry will make sure that all of this gets selected for my actual exporting. The next thing I need to do before I come in here and actually create my mesh is I need to make sure there's no other geometry inside the scene. So I'll come over here to display, I'll come down here, and I'll unhide all, and I would say that I have a lot of geometry over there. So I'll simply come up here to select by name, and let's just grab everything except for gun and all of its deflector stuff. So we've got box 01, the female commando, and then plane 01, 02, and 03. So we'll simply select those, hit delete, and at this point we can come back over here to ActorX, and everything's done. Quick recap, we've just simply set up our output folder, Viper as our name, and then up here we have simply told it all texture geometry is going to be our skins. Look good to you, Logan?
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and hit Save Mesh, and we get skin file viper.psk has been written. And it's been written back out to 3D Buzz 2 folder. We'll move it in just a minute. So let's go ahead and click OK on that. So now the next thing we're ready to do is take care of our animation. So for animation, we'll come in here and Viper. And now, animation sequence name. This time around, it's going to be a little different. I get to actually set up all of my sequences right here inside of 3ds Max as far as their names are concerned. So for animation sequence name, first one I'm going to do is going to be SP up. And the range, just like before when we was doing it, except we had our own exporter that we wrote. Kind of interesting if you think about it. We're going to do a animation range of 0 to 20. Okay, so spin up from 0 to 20. We'll go ahead and digest the animation. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, and you'll see what digesting the animation does in just a couple of minutes. So now we're going to tell it that the next one's going to be a fire. And its range is going to go from 21 to 30. And again, we will digest the animation. The next one is going to be SPDN for spin down, and its range is going to be 31 through 49. And again, we'll digest the animation. And then finally, what we'll do is we'll tell it that fire, and its range is going to be 50 to 60. And we'll digest its animation. Okay, once you've got all of your animation digested, we can simply come down here to the Animation Manager. It's going to open up this dialog, and right now, as far as output package is concerned, we don't have anything over there to save out to. So what I can do is I can come over here. Here's all the animations that I currently have stored. You can see as I select on them, you can see how many frames are involved, how many seconds it is, total keys, etc. If I wanted to do any key reduction, etc. All I want to do for this very basic tutorial is select all of these guys, move them over to my output package area, and then simply come down here and do a save as. And from inside here, what do you want to set it to?
Just Viper.psa.
Viper sound good to you?
Yeah, just Viper.
All right, so we'll tell it Viper, and we'll tell it save. Okay, so OK animation's good. Here's the key thing, though, sequences. We had 4 sequences written. So there's our animation cycles. So we'll simply tell it OK, and OK here. Now we're left with one last thing that we need to worry about doing. You remember the good old .u file, or .uc file, excuse me, that had all of the exec commands in there for importing all the proper stuff and all? We need to kind of set up for that, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yes.
So we'll, yeah, it's really late, guys. So we're going to come down here to the class area up under script template, and we'll just simply set class as Viper. And we'll select, this is pretty neat here, we'll set our base to tournament weapon. Remember earlier when we did it in a previous lesson, we had to go in there by hand and change where it says expands actor into expands tournament weapon. This will do it for us. Finally, we'll just check explicit sequence list. If we do not check this right here, we will not get our animation sequences over in our UC file. So that's very important. And with that, we're ready to save our script. So let's see. What was that, Logan?
We don't need to assume PCX texture.
Oh, very good point. Very good point. We're going to actually use our bitmap this time around as far as compiling and everything. That's a very good thing to point out. So I'll uncheck Assume PCX Textures, save the script one more time. Okay, so the script has been written out, and we're ready now to just Alt-Tab back over into 3D Buzz. So there we are, and I've got a whole bunch of files in here, and it's time to start moving these guys around. First thing I'll do is I'll take my buzz_texture.bitmap. I moved this here earlier from, remember, the lessons folder up under textures where we actually had the texture baked out to in an earlier lighting lesson. I'm just going to take this one right here and move it over to textures. So move it there. Now I'm going to take my UC file, simply move it over to my classes folder. And then I'm going to grab my PSK file, my PSA file, and take both of these and move them up to my models folder. Okay. Anything else, Logan, that you want to add?
That's it for directory structure. You'll have to make sure that you go into your Unreal Tournament INI file and make sure you have an edit packages line for 3D Buzz 2. Exactly,
and we've already done that. So we're just going to go ahead and tab on over here to our little command prompt, and let's run UCC make. And if all goes well, we should end up with a 3D Buzz 2.u package. So it's crunching and calculating, crunching and calculating. And crunching and calculating. Going through a lot here. Anything you want to add, Logan, while we seem to have a couple spare moments?
Nothing I think of.
Except for this is definitely a lot easier than the approach we took earlier. There we go. Now we've hit 3D Buzz 2. It's analyzing. We've got no errors. We've got no warnings. We're happy campers. Just to end this lesson off, let's just go ahead and come over here to our system folder, and let's get Unreal Ed cranked up, and let's just go into our mesh browser and take a look at it. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Then we can look at the UC file. We can talk about a couple things, and that'll conclude the section. So here we go. And we'll come over here and open up our mesh browser, drop this down, and let's come down and looking for Viper, or Viper Mesh actually. That's one of the newer things that is generated by this, as opposed to the when we used the 3ds to UNR earlier. It just called it Viper. This time around, this utility called it Viper Mesh, and you'd need to actually go into the UC file and change that.
Right. All your default properties lines.
Exactly.
You'd have to do you'd have to replace Viper with Viper Mesh.
But you know, here it is. Looks good. You know, pieces are moving. It's firing. It's animated. I'm happy.
Yep, that
So,
worked.
anyways, at this point, though, a couple of other things that may be a little bit different. Let's go ahead and jump back over here into our 3D Buzz 2 folder. And from there, we're going to come down to classes, and let's come into Viper. Okay, so now we're back into our UC file. And some things to note. This time, you're going to find that when you place the weapon into your scene, by doing it this approach, that it's going to be turned at an angle we didn't have this angle before when we did it with the 3DS to UNR approach. Easy to fix, though. You can simply come down here to the exec line that contains the origin. If you remember, in a previous lesson, we adjusted the X, Y, and the Z right here. Well, in this case, we want to actually adjust the yaw, pitch, and roll. And we've got some numbers we can throw at you with using the file that we've just used here. What are they? For yaw, we've got...
Minus 60.
So we've got minus 60 for yaw. Pitch, we've got...
Minus 2.3.
Minus 2.3. And finally for roll...
Is 0.
Is 0. Okay? And a few other things we can go ahead and show.
So you can see in take a look at the first exec line where it says mesh equals Viper Mesh.
Right.
That's where it actually got that name from. So you would either need to find all of Viper Mesh here and change it to say just Viper, or in your default properties lines do the opposite, change Viper to Viper Mesh.
Okay. So outside of that, anything else you can think of that we need to share with them?
If you wanted to use your old PCX texture for whatever reason, you can see the textures line it's got there. And it's pointing to textures and then that bitmap we used. You can go ahead and change that to whatever you want if you happen to have a different texture or a different name.
Exactly. And if you're following along with all of these different lessons, then you get to this lesson at the very end, you're like, ooh, I want to try that. Hey, no problem. You can still copy all of your gun code from your old UC file from the regular 3D Buzz folder and paste it in here. Just be careful, though, because we're now dealing with 3D Buzz 2.Viper Mesh as opposed to just .Viper. You need to make sure that everything's in sync with each other. So you want to come up here and change all of your Viper meshes over to, say, just Viper.
Right. Also, you want to take a look at your play anim lines. The animation will actually seem to play slower.
Point.
So just find that second value, the speed, and I would up that.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, what Logan's saying is now the information that's being stored as far as the animation is concerned is a little bit different. Actually, it's a lot different.
Yeah, it's quite a bit more detailed now.
So now we've got a lot more detail in there, and when you play your fire sequences and all using the numbers that we used earlier for the play anim functions, you're going to find that everything's going to react much slower. So all you got to do is just increase that number.
Exactly.
Okay. So with that, do you think this is good enough for ActorX?
Yeah, definitely. And definitely encourage everyone to at least try this out, because this is a very nice method of importing stuff. Absolutely.
But don't skip over those other lessons if you if you plan to ever start getting really good with scripting and Mac script. That's just very valuable information. The more knowledge you have, the more valuable you are. So I guess we could do a quick recap really fast. I'm kind of big on those. So let's just cruise on back over here. First thing, and let's cruise actually back over to this guy. So first thing I did was created a new folder up under Unreal Tournament, 3D Buzz 2. Inside it this time around, I by hand created 3 more folders, models, classes, and textures. Okay, from inside there, I then copied my textures file, the actual bitmap file that we're using on our gun back here, over into this folder. You could have copied it directly up under textures from the beginning. I just wanted you to see it actually happen. Once you've got that in place, make sure that you have the ActorX plugin installed. Quick note I can make here that I did not mention earlier. You'll notice that I am using 3D Studio Max 5. 3D Studio Max 5 code base for plugins is the exact same as Max 4. The wonderful thing about that is you are able to go online and download the ActorX plugin that is designed for Max 4.2, and it will work just fine with Max 5. All you need to do is copy the one single file for the plugin over into your Max 5 directory up underneath plugins. Drop it there, relaunch Max 5, you're ready to go. All right, from here, all I did is I came in here, I deleted all of my old animation. I linked all of my pieces together back to the main body area back here. Then from there, I reanimated everything just like we animated everything before. Once that was done, I deleted out all of the objects that were in my scene except for my gun. Otherwise, we would run into a problem when we did the save mesh. After that, in ActorX, all I did was came down and set my output folder to 3D Buzz 2. I came down, set my mesh file name to Viper, and then more importantly, I came down after that to the ActorX setup area. I unchecked all physique meshes, and I checked all texture geometry to make sure that it gets all of this. Once I did that, I simply came up here and I saved the mesh out. Step number 2, working with ActorX, was the animation. I came down here and I put each sequence name and the sequence range or animation range in, and I digested the animation. After I digested all of my sequences, then I simply came over here to my animation manager. I moved all of them over here to my output package, all 4 of them. Then I simply did a save as, and that was all taken care of for us. And then after that, we simplified it off by coming down here and saying that our class is going to be called Viper, and that what we're going to expand, or our base, is going to be Tournament Weapon. I made sure to check Explicit Sequence List, and since I'm using a bitmap this time around, I unchecked Assume PCX Textures. Saved out the script. Then it was just a matter of any adjustments you want to make inside the .uc, adding 3D Buzz 2 as an edit package over to your Unreal Tournament.ini file, compiling using UCC Make, ready to rock and roll.
Yep.
Sound good to you, Logan?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so with that, this is again just some bonus material for ActorX, giving you an easier way to do things. With that, thanks a lot, guys, and that concludes this section.